Cool. Hi,
Hello,
children.
and welcome to the Idiot Show, starring me, the idiot. I'm like the king of the idiots, except idiots don't believe in hierarchies. Which is, that's stupid, but that's why we're what we are. I'm joined by my best friend, Project AVR, who might have a pseudonym. He's a half man, half couch.
Am I inside the couch right now?
Only in my view,
Yeah, if
which
you
is
if you don't know
reality.
how to sit, if you don't know
Sit.
how to sit on a couch, then that's probably the
If
highest level of stupidity.
can you don't see the monitor at all?
No, not at the moment. Where is the
Oh,
monitor?
okay. I was gonna say in here we can have two realities. So like I could say you look like half man, half couch, but you could in your view you could be sitting on the couch completely normally, and we both would be right.
Do you think
It's like
there are
Fox
people that
News.
don't know how to sit on a couch? Do you think there are people
Oh,
that physically like they come up to the couch and they
eh,
just sort of
just can't figure it out.
try and like
I
angle themselves over this part and kind of
Yes, I mean, strangely, it is a learned behavior, and it's just because we take it for granted and make it seem like a simple thing. And we do the same thing with language. Language is incredibly complicated, but we think someone that can't speak our language is dumb. And it's always been that way.
yeah.
Like, ancient Greeks thought anyone that couldn't speak Greek was a barbarian because they sounded like ba 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 or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, I'm
I
just trying
think
to move this camera
that's
up a bit. How does that look?
cool. That looks
How's
awesome. It's better.
okay?
No, I can still see your half madness. I kind of like it though. I think we should go with it. You
Let me
know,
let me let me get
let's let
get off the
Jesus
sofa.
take
Let me
the
check.
wheel. Hey, hey. Jesus, take the wheel. Whoa,
We
look at it. You just popped up a little bit.
yeah,
I
I
think
did.
I think
I
that
re-sat
was
down.
a
I
sign
relearned
from
how to sit on a
JC.
couch.
Thanks, JC.
JC.
Okay.
Jay-Z? Oh, Jay-Z's our first guest. You didn't tell me you were
No.
gonna get Jay-Z on the show.
No.
Oh, I'm so
JC,
excited.
you're
I'm
more
so
excited.
excited. Is he
Wait,
gonna
wait.
come out of there?
Okay. 10
Is he coming out
seconds.
the curtain?
You would be more excited about meeting Jay-Z than Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think Jay-Z has been a pretty, phenomenal philosopher. And he's wrote some books, pretty big, important historical books. Performed some miraculous concerts and events. I think
Mm-hmm.
you know
Did
I'm
he
pretty sure he could
did
probably
he
walk on
die
water.
did he die for I can't remember. Did he die for everyone's sins? Is that something
Something
he
like
did?
that.
Did he die for
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's
yours
in.
and mine?
Yeah, I
That
think
was
that was the
Jay-Z?
name of one of his albums. That was one of his albums.
That's not.
Bigger Than God. That was the name of one of his albums.
You're thinking of John Lennon. I was
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
you,
that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
which I shouldn't correct you on the Beatles. Really, like you have the final say, I think, as far as wasn't that
No,
the
I
last treaty? Didn't the last treaty
yeah.
determine that you get the final say on the Beatles?
Well, I
All
think
the
you
important ones.
probably, based on my lack of musical knowledge, you probably know more about a lot of English musicians and artists and bands than I do.
Oh, really?
I watch a movie and
Uh,
then I hear a song in that movie and go,
hey,
oh, I like that, and then I
that's
listen to it like 20
that's
times.
that's what I do.
Yeah,
When did it
that's
start for you?
literally,
What's the
or a
first?
series.
What was your first love of a song that turned into a love for an artist
I don't know because I
from a
think
movie?
like for an artist from a movie. Can we see? Can we let's do the 1 to 5 so make sure we're synced right now.
That's true. One, two, three, four, five,
Now,
six. It's about the same.
not bad, not bad.
It's
But yeah,
pretty
no,
good.
I can't remember the first sort of film. But I almost feel like now because I'm not really worried about. I almost feel like when you're younger, people tend to be, not everyone does, but tend to be more worried about people's judgment when it comes to like their music taste and things like that.
Yeah.
So people kind of move with what everyone else is listening to, and I feel like as like more and more I slowly get out of that, I started to appreciate scores and like classical music more and that
Mm.
side of film. So the kind of those kind of like Shawshank Redemption, Road to Perdition,
Oh yeah.
anything that Hans Zimmer did,
Right.
like anything with Hans Zimmer, and I'm like, wow, like because that kind of music really like to me paints an image in my head, tells a story, and
Yeah.
like I just go with it. Um, but in terms of like bands and things like that, there are. I'm trying to think of films that really. You know what was interesting? Did you watch the series Scrubs?
No. Uh-uh.
But the series Scrubs had a lot of like music in it that I was like, I really like this this music. And
Yeah.
then I watched films that had Zach Braff, who's in Scrubs,
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
um, he was involved in making like different movies and was in other films. And then I noticed as I was watching him, I was like, this is like Garden State. I was like,
Yeah.
it's a great soundtrack.
Yes.
And I was just like watching like this is really good. And then I was like, wait, this is Zach Braff, the common like. Do I need to go on IMDb and just see anything he's involved in? And I'm just gonna like it by
Right.
default because of the music involved
Yeah.
in it. But, saying that, I haven't seen him do anything in a while, but I haven't been looking.
Yeah, I'm not
Maybe he's doing
sure. There
indie
was some
stuff.
kind of he got involved early with the crowdfunding thing, and there was some kind of misunderstanding about creative control, I think, or something. I mean, I might just completely be making that up. I'm not sure, but
How do you know that? Like how did that information get to you? I'm curious.
I don't know. I've always followed cinema. We're very similar in that. Like movies were an anchor for me, and that's I mean, obviously that's one of the reasons I made the Idiot Show and have the different movies that we have lined up. Did I tell you the lineup? I have the first 4 films set up. So
Oh
Schindler's
no,
List
I'm
is
yeah.
one.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no, I do know. Then we're gonna segue into
Lord of the Rings,
Hello. Yeah,
right?
Lord of the Rings.
And then I don't know what order, but I'm gonna do the piano and Fight
Yeah.
Club.
Oh, I haven't seen the piano. I need to see the piano.
Yep. And
How have I not seen
so
the piano? This is me just imitating Fight Club right now. I'm trying
yes,
to.
that's gonna be good.
Put,
We'll have to do
put.
some wrestling for that. There's
I
great
don't even know if
things.
we're live, but I'm just showing up to the camera right now.
So masculinity obviously will be kind of the focus of Fight Club, and then
Why did you look at me when you said masculinity?
did I? I thought I looked at my mirror of myself because testosterone runs through this. Look at these. I
All
get
those
I do
gains,
I get
all the
swole.
proteins.
Yeah, all of them. A's
Mm-hmm.
and the B's. I get the
And
fast twitch
yeah.
and the slow twitch.
Oh yeah.
hmm
No. Are we on Twitch?
Sometimes I get an eye twitch.
Oh,
But
look at my jaw. This is
it's lovely.
this is real man right here. Look at this.
Mm. A
Look at that.
1990.
I store the protein in my nose.
Whoa.
Tip.
I just did a movie quote and I didn't know it, but I caught it
What?
myself. I said in
Okay.
1990, and
Yeah.
that was a poem from. Did you ever see The Zero Effect?
No.
It was
Zero effect.
it was made. It was the first film by who is he? Lawrence Kasdan's kid. This is a Hollywood director, Jake Kasdan. He made Orange County later, which was maybe a
Oh
little more.
yes.
But
Yeah.
The Zero Effect was really funny. Bill Pullman played the Detective Zero, who was kind of an eccentric genius detective, and then Ben Stiller was like his handler that kept getting sucked in to his
Okay.
shenanigans. It's funny. Anyway,
Interesting.
Anointy Noity was a really bad poem that somebody wrote, and that
Do
keyed him off.
you find yourself doing that a lot, where you kind of you just quote movies and then you
Never
don't actually
endingly.
realize you're doing it?
No,
Yeah, that's literally
yeah.
90% of my conversations with Olivia are movie quotes, and if we didn't like, I think that was the decider that we were soulmates, was the fact
Yes.
that when we met, she just understood what I was saying. Like,
Right.
and like, no, I didn't realize that before that I'd just been saying shit, and people would like girls I'd been dating before that would
They
just
just
kind of
giggle.
laugh.
Right.
They
Yeah.
had no idea what I was talking about. They were like, ha 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 ha. They were like, he's semi-attractive. He sounds like he might
Wow.
know what he's talking about, and
You do
maybe
really
at some
well.
point,
I never
maybe
had
at
a
some
girl
point
tell
might
me
make
that
some
I'm
money.
semi-attractive. So
Semi-attractive.
that's
He's got
like
a
my
semi. I
dream.
mean, he's
Someday, I hope.
yeah, someday. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm gonna put my hands together again. Oh, I like this.
It is endlessly fascinating,
It is.
and
It's incredible.
it makes me want to
all
eat
about
sausage links every time.
Sausages.
Sausages.
Daddy, would you like some sausages?
Wait, that reminds me of Freddy Got Fingered. Remember that?
It is Freddy Got Fingered. Yeah. Daddy, would you like some sausage?
See?
Daddy, would you like some sausages?
It's like we share the same brain. I'm very sorry
Yeah.
for that. It must be hard for you. How do you cope with it?
Well, I'm constantly in pain internally, so I hope you're dealing with it better than I am.
Oh, just stifling a scream right as we talk. As
Really,
usual.
outside it's me speaking, but inside I'm going, oh! Just the voices.
Just, that's
Constantly.
nice. Well,
And it never gets tired. Never runs out of.
Yeah.
Never runs out of
right.
breath. Just.
Did you see the Simpsons
one long-
episode with the little caterpillar that they had to save?
No.
Oh,
I must have actually. Tell me about it, because I must have seen it. I just need a reminder.
So it was when the in America we were dealing with a lot of deforestation and like the spotted owl habitat and things like that. And so they were taking over private land sometimes because they were protecting the animals. So in the backyard they had this screaming caterpillar that was super
Oh
rare,
yes.
and they couldn't
Yeah,
kill it,
right.
and they had to take care of it. And it was sexually attracted to fire, so they had to like keep it away from everything. And all it would do is just scream nonstop unless they were like doting on it. Uh,
Uh,
I don't know. So it's something like that.
it reminds me, my brother actually got a pet hissing cockroach.
Oh,
And
that's a
it's
real
funny.
thing.
Yep, but it's
Mm,
funny because the place he got it from was next to like a pizza place locally. So it's
mm.
literally like this store that sells these bugs and like hissing cockroaches next door to where you order your takeout. And I'm like,
Of
what the fuck?
course.
Did it just run out of the kitchen and they just potted
Right,
it?
you know, it's one of those secondary
And it was
businesses.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's smart, right? Very clever business
Hey, we
structure.
got a
You
resource here.
know.
That's what clever people sound like.
Yeah.
I wish I was
Hey, we got
clever.
a resource here.
Resources over here.
Get your resources.
Ah,
2 for a buck.
I love it when resources are resources. 'Cause then
Resources are sometimes
they're the best
resources.
resources. Resources.
They are.
So, if you get a good one,
You get a good resource.
it's an endless resource.
We're running out of resources.
Oh my
gonna,
god.
who's gonna compete in the next derby? Derby. What accent was that? Derby. I'm American. I don't know where I'm from. I don't know where I'm from.
You're from Derby. Ah,
Yeah.
that's fun.
But yeah, hissing cock. I remember the hissing cockroach just being crazy loud.
Mm.
It's just and I think in the end he set it free. Like
He just needed
run
it
free,
to go. Like,
run free, and then it just went into someone's house and probably got stamped on instantly. A
uh,
screaming lady. Woo!
so that they hiss nonstop then, like,
No, you just like I think it's under certain conditions. So I think it's quite cruel, really, because it's almost like your way of showing someone and proving someone that's hissing cockroach would be like shake it in the pot or something,
oh,
so it
nice.
hisses. Like it's probably a sound of like extreme pain or something. Like it makes that
Aw,
sound, and everyone's like, "Cool, look at
that's
this
good.
hissing thing," and then it's like, "I'm in agony, you bastard!" That's what the
Oh,
hiss is.
that's what the
Kill
hiss is.
me!
It's horrible existential cry.
Yeah,
Well,
but it's like people
I guess
like with petting animals. Like people say that some animal, like people petting them, like, oh, isn't that cute? And they're like, that's like probably painful
right.
to them, or they don't actually enjoy that. They just
Yeah,
enjoy the food that you give them, and they've combined the two together,
right.
so they know that when you fuss them, that means
Do you
you're
think that's true
more
with
likely
dogs?
to
I
give
mean,
them a
dogs are the
stiff.
one that it seems like they actually a lot of times do
Well,
enjoy.
I think the thing is though that people
They're already
forget that.
freaks.
Well, people forget that when we talk about animals, they're not that like we are animals,
Yeah,
and they're not different from us in the sense that they can have the same conditions and issues we have. And like talking earlier about hypersensitivity,
sure.
like I have moments where like, and Olivia knows and appreciates it. I'll be like, don't touch me. Like I'm just like I have a
Right.
hypersensitivity moment where I can't explain it, but it's just like there's this energy running through my body. I often get it in my legs,
Yeah,
but then when I'm like that, I don't want anyone to like I don't want to be touched
yeah.
because it's like over
Painful.
stimulus.
Yeah,
And it's kind of, and I think you get animals that get that same thing, which is
right.
why like we look after dogs, and there's one dog we look after that will love her first, but
Uh,
she'll tell you when she doesn't want to be stroked. Like she'll suddenly change, and I'm like, it's probably the same similar thing, probably like just hypersensitivity to it, and like
right.
like
Well,
you've ever had someone like you ever had someone tickle on your arm or tickle on your arm? Very British way to say it. Tickle on your arm. You ever had it? You ever had your uncle tickle on your arm? No, go
uh,
then. But like they're just like, and it's at first it's like enjoyable,
yeah,
but if they do it in the same spot for too long, then it becomes
yeah. It's
almost
annoying.
like painful.
Like painful, like
Yeah.
abrasive or
Mm.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, so I imagine, in the same way that we have that, animals get the same thing. So people wonder why, the dog attacks them after a while or barks at them.
Right.
And the truth is, that's their way of communicating. They can't turn around and say, "Don't touch me."
Exactly. And if we were better I mean, if that communication was clearer, there probably wouldn't be as many misunderstandings.
Sounds like you're blaming the dog for it. If the dog was clearer at communicating,
Well, if they don't want to eat their Alpo.
Mhm.
No, it's usually on the human end, obviously. But I mean,
Yeah.
with my
Oh,
my dog that I'm closest to,
well, right
um,
now, physically.
well, not this moment, but because he's asleep like a normal mammal at this hour.
Mm.
Um, but he'll like if I accidentally hurt him, like for playing around or something like that, he lets me know so we can communicate kind of that way. But I think
Okay.
they're pretty good at the basics. And then if he accidentally hurts me and I yelp, then he gets it, and then we don't do that again. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
No, it makes sense. It's kind of like when you know, obviously, that some people aren't that um, adept or that um, patient, I guess, as well, and they don't really pay attention to those things. So they're just
right,
kind of like, this is what I want. Why won't my dog be a lap dog and let me just kiss
right,
it on the face 24/7
right.
when it's probably like, get out of my face, you disgusting human. Um,
When did you
but yeah.
start to realize that you had the overstimulation thing, like the
Well,
electricity?
I like, I mean, probably like it's one of the things I've always had. And it's funny because it's always been there. It's not that it, yeah, as you said, it's like when do you start to notice it? It's more like it's always been noticed, but I've never tried to explain it. It's never been like never tried to diagnose it. It was just there. It was just a thing, and you kind of think you almost feel like it's normal. It's just a normal thing.
Did you know? I
It's
mean, at
really,
that point, did you think that's how everybody felt? Like,
I don't know if I thought that that's how everybody felt. I just kind of, it's really weird because it's kind of you literally it's like in your blind spot. Like it's there all the time, but it's just in your blind spot.
right.
And as I said with self-medicating, like I drank alcohol from a young age,
Mm,
and it was incredibly effective at medicating it. So like when I'd go to parties or go out with friends, we'd be. It's funny because me and my friend used to say we'd be the cool kids that would turn up to the party because when we were underage, we'd turn up with like crates of beer,
mm,
and like our families were more sort of accepting of that, and they were like okay with it.
mm.
And often like because we drink at home and things like that, they were okay with it. um, so I'd turn up with whenever I go to friends' parties, I'd turn up with like a crate, and it was only later that friends were like, "Yeah, you did definitely have a problem," but I'd turn up with like a crate of beer, and and some of those friends would be smoking weed at parties, but I would just go. I picked beer instead. I picked alcohol instead because I didn't want to smoke weed all the time. So
Mm.
they'd be smoking weed, and I'd just sit there and just go through a crate of 20 beers by myself with no problem.
Wow.
Um, and it would, as I said, it was so effective at numbing it that I just think rather than facing it, I just put stuff between me and it,
Right.
quite early on. So it didn't come about until sort of probably not till like in my 20s when I actually I remember one. Been trying to cut down on drinking, and obviously when you cut down on it, because that's the funny thing, people don't realize it's not like this balanced scale. Like when you know, you drink it gets it so the scale's gone this way, and you're not hypersensitive anymore. And then when you stop, it just balances back up to where it was. It doesn't. It goes back the other fucking way,
Right.
like to the extreme.
It was
So
just
kind of
helping you
obviously that,
cope, and now you have no coping.
yeah. And then it's like you're pushed even more to go back. And I remember one I was around with friends and we were playing beer pong
Mm.
with some people. Like he was a teacher, like a TA, and he had like some of the younger TAs around, and we were trying to keep up with them drinking wise.
Mm.
So like I was doing the thing where there was shot in the beer pong glasses, there was vodka, and I was like, fuck, I'm gonna keep up with them, so I'm just gonna down this vodka. So I was
Ugh.
like, yeah, so you do it, down the vodka. I woke up the next morning, we drank so much, I was violently sick, probably about 5 times.
Ugh.
And I looked at my face in the mirror, and you have the bloodshot, sort of
Yeah.
bloodshot eyes, the blood spots like under the eyes from like straining.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, that's it. Like, and it's funny because it's one of those you always say never again, and people do it. And like
Right.
when I said it, I knew it, and
Right.
I was like, no, this is real.
Right.
And I said, and then I stopped drinking for probably like a year and a half, maybe.
Oh wow.
Um, so I cut out alcohol for a year and a half. And that's why now I said when I drink, I can't drink that much because I'll just get drunk pretty easily, which is good. It's that
Yeah.
good thing.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and then that year and a half was like where I had to actually face it and come to terms with the fact that I was like, okay, and that's when I did sort of pull things apart and realize I was like, oh, like this hypersensitivity thing is real. I've just been sort of self medicating it.
Yeah.
Um, And I realized in college as well, because I went to college to study sort of electrical engineering,
Mm,
um, and and I realized because it was one of the lectures, the teacher was talking, and someone was sitting behind me scratching their arm as I was
mm,
trying to concentrate on what she was saying, and I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't take notes. I couldn't do anything because all I could hear was this guy just scratching
yeah.
his arm behind me, and I was so sensitive to it. So yeah, I kind of slowly over that time when I actually removed the thing that was that I was using to medicate to put up that wall to kind of ignore actually dealing with the issue. That was when I was kind of like, okay, I see it now. So it's kind of that's alcohol and things like that. Self medicating was keeping it in my blind spot, and then
Right.
when I stopped, I was like, now I can see it. There it is,
How did you cope
which is
though? I mean,
interesting.
what were other how? I mean, because you're still.
I stopped doing shit that I didn't actually like to do to impress people that I didn't really care about impressing.
Oh, okay.
Keeping up with the Joneses, I think that's the big issue. Is that obviously it makes sense that if being in situations that create that, you know, that kind of are going to make it worse, I would put myself in those situations, and that would make me self medicate.
Hmm.
So I would remove myself from those situations, and I'd stop spending as much time with people that wanted to go. Like I had friends that would want to catch up, which I found hilarious when you old friends you haven't spoken to in a while. I
Yeah.
had one friend that would like message me and be like, "Oh, let's hang out,"
Hmm.
and by that he meant let's go out and go on a night out and go drinking. And I'd be
Right.
like, "Nah, I'm not going out. I'm not going on a night out drinking. But do you want to catch up for coffee?" And then they wouldn't get back to me
Right.
because they were really just looking for a drinking buddy, like
Right.
someone to sort of help justify, sort of just going out and drinking. So
Right.
so I just like a big part of it is just stop spending time with the people and stop going to the places that are gonna sort of
And that, I mean, that sounds
aggravate
kind
those
of
things.
simple on the surface, but that takes a huge shift in what your motivation is, like what your interests are, what you want your future to be. Like, what, I mean, that's a big perspective shift. Like, what do you think caused that? I mean, why was it okay
I
for you to like say, oh, well, this stuff doesn't matter anymore? Even,
Yeah, I
like,
think a combination of things. I think my mum was sick at the time as well,
mm,
so she got like diagnosed with cancer, and I was kind of and also I previously it was like a whole build up of things because I'd been sort of self educating more, and taking more of an interest in neuropsychology as well,
mm,
and behavior and habits, and that was my reading was going down that path anyway. And
mm,
then when I think that was it, I'm not really I'm terrible with time. Like this is something I need. I don't understand why I'm so bad with time. Like my in my head, my timeline of how things happen. There's just no order to it. It's
right,
just like stuff all over the place, and I don't know how it happened. But it was, yeah, I think a combination of things. But you're right. It's that perspective shift that you can't teach. Like sometimes it just takes extremes,
right,
and things to happen in your environment and around you to actually push you to it's like you say, like when you want to it's really hard because you want to, especially if you want to give people advice or help them transition through bad periods in their life.
yeah,
It's difficult to do that with people that aren't already looking for that because of they've already hit the perspective shift and they're looking for that.
right,
But the people that aren't just aren't, and until they kind of until something happens, like it's hard to create the stimulus that causes that perspective shift. Like in the first place, that's the hardest thing to do.
right.
I don't even know if it's possible. Like, I don't know if we can do it. Like,
I'd like to believe that we can. I mean, in mental health, we talk to people a lot, and
hmm,
so I've seen it. It takes time, and it's
yeah,
it's like peeling back layers, but um, it does seem to be there are certain types of people. Like it's interesting when you're talking about um, how you have trouble with time. There's people that I've seen over the years, and I think of them as philosophers. They just like they don't know it. But a
hmm,
philosopher generally is thinks of themselves as one thing, and they accept life. They're very like willing to look at life the way it is and say like, well, this is who I am, and these are my good points, and these are my bad points, and this is what I excel at, and this is what I suck at, and I just kind of just deal with it. But they don't ever join something and then become that thing as much as they attach things to themselves because they're like, oh well, this is me, and I'm stuck with me, but I like this, and I like this, and I like this, and then the attached things just become a part of who you are because you like them. It's like you've integrated those, and the timeline of them doesn't really matter. That's the essence of them. Isn't
yeah,
the timeline? The essence is, oh, I found this thing. I illuminated this
yeah,
part of myself or whatever. And I think, I mean, it's a type of personality because it doesn't fit into any kind of corporate sort of, you start at the bottom and you work your way up and you do this and then you do this and then you get this job here and you move over there, and that kind of mentality where you're essentially having to, play roles. I mean, that's, and like that today you have to do this and you have to impress these people, and tomorrow you have to go there and you have to do those kind of things.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult, and so it rewards people that are better at compartmentalizing that way. But I think the other reason is that, the oversensitivity is part of that as well. But what makes me sad is that we talk about it like it's oversensitivity. You're not oversensitive. You're normal. A lot of people that are really successful are undersensitive, and they thrive in this completely artificial world that we live in. This little, blinking lights and noises, 24/7 news feeds from around the world that never end. Horrible images, and we watch people die. And things. And we weren't built for this. And so I see someone like you and I think, here's a sensitive person that still feels, you still have a working heart, like you care about someone that you've never met before. And but that's not being oversensitive. That's being human. That's being what we should be.
It's true. It's true, but it ties into what I said about the things that people talk about as well. The idea of weaknesses and realizing that the things you've classed as weaknesses aren't, it's kind of like that. I don't know if you watched the series Fargo, like the newer.
Oh, I did.
An old film,
but I just enjoyed them. I didn't analyze them.
Oh, you didn't analyze them. There's the poster on the wall of all the fish, like when he's like killed his wife. When it's poster on the wall of the fish like swimming one way and one fish swimming the other way.
Right.
All the fish swimming one way. It said maybe you're. I can't even remember the quote, but essentially it was along the lines of maybe you're not maybe you're not wrong. Maybe you're not the one that's, heading in the wrong direction kind of thing. Sure. And I think that in terms of, no, you're right, 100%. I sort of talk about it as if it's, hypersensitivity, and it's kind of like,
there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, it's like, is there something wrong with me, or is there something wrong with everything else? Like, are we not living in environment that, is our natural?
Right. And that's not to say that like other people, that lived in different times or whatever. I mean, this is new stuff. We're all an experiment. We're in real time, live streamed from across thousands of miles, right?
Like and subscribe.
And so we're all trying to figure it out. But that's the other thing that makes me sad is like people are anxious and depressed now, not because they have anxiety and depression, but because the world we live in creates anxiety and depression. If you didn't have anxiety and depression, I would be worried about you. Like what kind of medication are you taking? Or are you just depressing it all away with alcohol or other things, which I get, because how can anybody do it? And then, that's kind of what this show ends up being about. I mean, I said the things like the idiots are people who aren't competent, and then the other people are. And so we're on the side of people that just aren't.
What was it? How did you determine idiot and assholes? Was it?
Yes. I wasn't sure if that was an approved word for PG-13.
Well, no, I think it's fair. I think the difference, as you said, is that it just comes down to that sort of confidence and people's sort of strength.
Right.
To a degree, I say strength in belief, but I don't mean that necessarily. I don't mean as a compliment.
Right.
I mean as in people's like
conviction,
inability to adapt, inability to they're just not flexible anymore.
Right.
Like so they're just kind of set in their ways, so to speak, as people say. And and it's when you are flexible, as you said, that's when you realize that you are an idiot, because you're ignorant of so many things. And you're always going to be, and that becomes, you just kind of go, okay, well, I'm always going to be ignorant of something. It's a constant state of progression.
Right. And then it actually becomes an exciting thing, because it means it's an eternal interest. Like you can follow anything almost infinitely already. Like if you're really interested in how insect eyes evolved, you can spend the rest of your life on that topic alone or something.
Exactly. Right? And that, I think for me, like, I can talk about it because I live with my family here, and I'm in a comfortable position because they're super supportive, and they know sort of the work I'm doing and things I'm heading towards, and I'll talk to them about it, and they're very supportive. Mm-hmm. So it's easy for me to say, like, I'm in a comfortable position, because right now I'd honestly say, like, I'm the happiest I've ever been, and over the past years that's just been growing, and part of it is down to that understanding, as you said, that perspective on life of being like, okay, it is like, even though people, because people would love to throw around sayings, and I always find it interesting because those sayings really dictate. They're just sayings. Just people made up shit. People say
Right.
stuff like, "Oh, this
Like,
like
oh, we're
life
trapped
is
with this
short." It's
forever.
like, yeah, like life is it? Like, is
Right.
life short? Like, it's pretty
Right.
fucking long. Like,
Right.
I've lived like I'm 30 now, so that's 30 years. I've got what another. I've got to live my whole life again potentially before I get.
Yeah.
I could get hit by a bus. So
Sure.
do you know what I mean? It's like life can be short, but if you tell everyone that life is short, then they live.
Right.
It makes sense that people are going to live based on
Right.
immediate gratification and instant
And
gratification,
that
and
also would
it's
mean,
not.
like,
Yeah,
Socratically, like, marriage is short, or any relationship you have is short, right? Like, it
yeah, exactly.
devalues these things that we know get better over time. Um,
Exactly.
yeah.
And as you teach people that, as you tell people that that is the case, then that becomes the case. That's their narrative. That's their story.
Exactly.
They tell themselves that, and people. I find it so interesting that people just cling to these sayings
Oh
and
yeah.
these statements, and they live their life by them.
Well,
And then
and
one day
that
you've just got to pull the rug out and be like, "Someone made that shit up," and you're living by it. Like
it,
it's not the objective truth. You're just
right.
accepting it.
But
You're
does it
like,
work? Does it
"That's my
ever
story."
work? Have you ever woke anybody up
No,
like that? Like,
no,
right.
no. That's the thing. It's kind of. I mean, there are conversations I've had with people that over time have led to, like I told you about my friend who kind of said he'll spend a lot of time with, it's nothing wrong, nothing against his other friends he spends time with, but he feels like when he spends time with me, he can be more real
Right.
and there's no judgment involved.
Right.
So when you provide that safe environment and you're like, there's no judgment here, then people,
Right.
then, but over the long term, like it takes a long time for people
Right.
to get comfortable and understand that that is the environment
Mm.
they're in.
Right.
And then you can have these honest conversations. But as I said, it's until you spend that time and put that time in, it's hard because you're trying to pull the rug, and
Yeah.
they're like, "No, fuck, I don't
Right.
know what's under the rug," and you're like,
Well,
"There's nothing. It's just the floor." Like you
right.
just like,
But that's not always true, because the narrative can mean a lot of things, right? I mean, narratives we live by are what we accept as our truth. So if we say that's a real thing, like if it's a religion or things like that, then it's very set in stone, and it does matter. So
true,
I mean,
yeah,
that's when
true.
it
I mean,
becomes very
and yeah,
difficult.
yeah, and I do say that. I say there's nothing like as if it's easy to pull the rug because there's nothing underneath it. Like there is a way to fall. Like there is quite a way to fall. For
Right.
like it's not just like pulling a
Right.
rug necessarily. It's like it's you're pulling a foundation is a
Yes.
better analogy for it because it's
Right.
kind of like the rug suggests, as I said, that the floor is literally just underneath it, where the foundation is like you're tearing someone's foundation down. They have to rebuild
Right.
after that. And I think the constant state of progression thing is that you're constantly rebuilding your foundation.
Yeah. What
Um,
if people just don't want
uh,
to, though? Like, what if they're
yeah.
secure in their beliefs and their beliefs are working? Like, if you follow the rules of the Bible, you don't kill or steal or adultery or lie, you're going to have a solid relationship. You're going to have solid family. You're going to have solid friends and those kind of things. Because people who are kind and generally behave in a way that Christians are supposed to behave will do well
Mhm.
over time in social groups, right? I forgot what
Mhm.
my point was now. Where did we start?
Well, no, you're saying what if people don't want to? They don't
Oh,
want to
right.
change because
Okay.
that, yeah,
So
yeah,
we know those rules will work. And so you could just say, "Hey, this is what my great grandpa did. This is what my great grandma did. This is what grandma and grandpa did. This is what mom and
yeah.
dad did. It's worked for all of us. We do it. We're sincere. We're kind. We really live by it. So it's not. That's the thing that I have trouble with, the distinction if you're going to do idiots and assholes, right? Because there's people that
Yeah.
have conviction to the point that they really live by those convictions. Like, if you believe that every sin you did killed Jesus, you try not to sin, right?
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
you are
Yeah.
careful
Yeah.
about it. And so they might be confident, but they're not. They're certainly not assholes, right? And so I
No,
don't
no,
know.
no,
I
no.
don't know where to put.
100%, 100%. It's like I said, where I think when I said to you I had bad experiences of Alpha Course when I was younger, and it became like very cult like. It was
Mhm.
like very religious, but it's very culty. And
Yeah.
it was like the whole bend over, touch your toes, pray to be able to touch your toes. Oh, you can
Right.
touch your toes, and I was like, it's stretching. What are you talking about?
Right.
But like so they use the sort of manipulative techniques. But
Right.
I'd always think about it in my head of like, if these people genuinely believe that I'm going to go to hell if I don't accept Jesus as my savior,
Mhm.
then of course you're going to do whatever it takes to convince people. Well, you're
Sure.
going to do whatever it takes because
The stakes are infinite. Yeah.
if you genuinely believe that someone's going to burn in hell for all eternity, you're like, what do I need to do? Like, how much money do I need to give you to like, how can
Right.
I do it? How can I convince, even though obviously that's not going to work, but how can I convince you? Like, so it's not, as you say, it's not a simple case of it's not like, again, we know that anyway, like in the same way,
Sure.
talking about analogies and sayings and like, it's all like oversimplifying always. We're
Right.
always oversimplifying it.
Real
It's
life
so
is
much,
messy.
so much. Yeah, it's so much more complicated.
Right.
And it's that, it's kind of hard to kind of pinpoint and be like, because as you said, if people are happy, like I always think about it like this in terms of, things being actionable.
Mm.
When people are they practical? Are they actionable? Do they lead to you moving to a positive state, like in the direction of a positive state,
Mm.
emotionally? Like, as and even that's like massively oversimplifying, but it's kind of trying to have some sort of framework in this, the structure that you're building of you. Is like,
Hmm.
how do you create that? Like, what are your pillars? What
It,
pillars
is the
lead
end
to that?
is the end goal then always just growth of any kind? I mean,
Yeah,
what's the end goal?
I mean, that's the thing as well. That's the other issue when you go into, it's not an issue, but like in like that was one thing I knew in school when people are like, why would you study philosophy? Because it's just a bunch of why, just people
Yeah.
saying why all the time, like why, like till the
Hmm.
end of days. And I know people that have studied
And you
philosophy
said
and got to that point
because I want to be
where they
wise.
because they want to be wise. But I
That's
know
what
people
I
that have
say.
studied. Yeah, I know people that have studied, like, looked into it and thought themselves out of existence almost, because
Oh, really?
it gets to that inevitable
Right.
conclusion where you're kind of
Right.
like,
True.
well, what's the point? Like,
Right.
what's the point in
You get to, well,
anything
it's
then?
all
Like,
linguistics anyway, and these are just language games, so nothing matters.
yeah,
I always thought it was really fascinating that, and I think that's when it hurts my feelings every time I think about it. Stephen Hawking saying philosophy is dead, but it's hard to
yeah,
argue because it decided to leave. It's humanity. The love
yeah,
of wisdom left humanity. It's like saying
yeah,
beauty, like optics decided to leave beauty, so we don't need paintings anymore because we know
yeah,
how
yeah,
optics work. So we just have some wave
yeah,
of color, like so. Van Gogh's a real asshole now.
yeah,
If you think what is important about life is human life, love and family, and I mean whatever, community and those kind of things, but trying to thrive and trying to do better and trying to be better, and all that kind of stuff. How do you leave it behind? How do you just say, oh, which is linguistics, and humans are just playing linguistic games, and they're always going to just
yeah,
be like chickens and scratch around and kill everything and like whatever.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, I mean that's it. That's really what it comes like when you start thinking about it like that, and you go into that direction. There is always um there's there's a strong likelihood that you're going to start being like, well, what's the point? Like,
right,
what not, what should we do? What can we do about it? Like, why should we bother? Like, um and and I think, like, again, for me it's the sort of perspective thing. It's kind of like it's a choice. Like, that's where the choice comes in. Like, where you actually go, okay, taking into account all of that, I'm choosing
right,
I'm choosing to see the world this way.
right,
Like, and I know it's a choice. It's not
right,
right. It's not objective truth. It's my choice to see the world this way,
right.
because
So then, what if
this,
I asked
for
you
me,
this?
this
What if I said on a scale of 0% to 100%, how confident are you that your view is the correct view, the truthful view?
zero.
Zero.
Well, I
give
mean,
me
not
give me
like
give me a smidge. I have to be able to compare it to other things.
2.5.
Okay, that's good.
Um, but
You're now
not.
my
It's
low
not.
range.
The thing is, it's not, because I also understand that, like, to me, it's 100%. It's 100% and it's zero at the same time, because it's
Hmm.
kind of like,
Well, it can't
it's
be
like, I
100%. Then you got no
know.
room for growth anymore.
No, I know, true. It's not okay. I guess it's not 100%, but you get what I mean. Like, it's not like, I know it's not like we talk about objective truth. Like, I understand and consciously aware that if there is an objective truth, I'm sure as hell not going to see it,
Sure.
or I'm not capable of seeing it, or whatever. So it's kind of
What do you
being,
think the best way to get to the heart of objective truth is?
um, that's a tough question. I mean, if I knew that,
How about
I
I
feel like
take over then? This is
there
how
you
you do
go.
it,
That's
everyone. This
okay.
is how I choose to do it. Okay, we start with
Okay.
Descartes, right? I think, therefore I am. That's subjective
Did you just say? Oh,
experience.
okay, sorry. I thought you said Dick Hard, which is, never mind. Carry on.
That's my porn name, Descartes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rene Descartes.
Oh yeah.
Give her the
Actually,
D.
that sounds pretty good. That's terrible.
Mm.
Oh man, I feel bad because philosophy's sacred. We can't talk nerdy.
Okay, come on.
You know what
Nothing's sacred.
Isaac Newton
Nothing's
would
sacred.
say if he heard us right now? He'd roll over. Lifelong
Yeah.
celibacy for Isaac Newton. Anyway, so we start with subjectivity. I think,
Yeah.
therefore I am, right? You
Yeah.
think, therefore you are. You see what you see, you feel what you feel, you hear what you hear, and that's what you do, right? So for
Yeah.
years, we didn't always agree on what that was, and especially with superstition angels and demons and those kind of things, like monsters and whatever.
Mm.
We didn't agree. Science came along and said, well, let's do this process. We'll have lots of people look. We'll use instruments to measure. We'll do it over and over again, and then we'll ask someone else to do it somewhere far away.
Mm.
Replication, right? And that worked really well. And so we did it more and more. And then science made the virtual reality. Like, it took like 2 seconds
We're
to
in
get
right now.
from A to B, right? And so I
Yeah.
think the best way to try is to get as many people as you can, as many diverse as you can. So you're trying to find people from different places all over the globe that grew up in different ways and understand and see the world differently, right? So like 16 perspectives, but they all end up in the same place. How do they end up there? Well, they must be following something. And so for me, that's what it's all about, is trying to find the people that are super diverse but say the same thing. So like the
Mm.
Ten Commandments, for example,
It's like
very
the underlying archetypes kind of thing.
exactly
What's yeah.
what's always been true.
Mm.
And we have so many ways
Yeah.
to figure it out now that we didn't have in the past. Now we know about things like evolution, so we know that there are certain religions that are adaptive, right? Judeo-Christian
Yeah.
religions are adaptive. Over half of the planet is Judeo-Christian. There's something about that is right, that is healthy, that
Mm.
is prolific or whatever, right? We
Mm.
don't know what it is because they do a lot of things that are strange, like circumcision. Maybe it's just
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Somehow we don't know why, but that is adaptive. Actually, my wife and I were talking about that the other day. We were thinking maybe it was because you keep the males down. So like if you lost like infant mortality was high in the olden days anyway. Yeah, imagine
Yeah.
circumcision probably was, well, though circumcision didn't always happen to infants, I don't think, back in the day anyway. But if there was
Yeah.
higher infant mortality, that might have swayed some things. But anyway, doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get what you're saying. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's these kind of these underlying, as you say, these things that exist
Yeah, we
sort of
can go back and
throughout.
look. So it's like traditional Chinese medicine or something. Like if there's some root that somebody had a toothache and then they chewed the bark of this tree, right? We don't have to go like,
Yeah.
oh, that's mumbo jumbo. We can go test and say like, oh, well, it's got some analgesic properties or something, right?
Yeah.
It's nice to start with all this history. Now, history isn't always perfect, but we definitely see these kind of things that have stood the test of time. And I think the Judeo-Christian one is fascinating. And I think because it is a religion of love, especially the Christian religion, I think that's what brought it this far. It was love
Mm.
and rules, people that actually believed in what they
Mm.
were doing and following rules. But I think that's what we've
Mm.
lost. And I think that's why we see society kind of heading the wrong direction. Um,
Mm.
is that the
Yeah.
ability to love, like,
Yeah. It's true. It's like you said. There's like a balance as well between things, because it's kind of like, there's it's how people see things as well. Like I always say, like people, it's not a simple case of just like being like, oh, here's this book that like live by this and it's great,
right.
and then they just kind of people aren't reading the same book, even though
Sure.
they're reading the same book. They're not reading the same
Well,
book.
what about this?
They're
I mean, we always kind of say like it's almost like moral relativity takes over, and like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do because my beliefs are equal to everyone else's or whatever. But groups
mm,
should be accountable. Groups of people,
mm,
like whether it's a Christian group or a political group or whatever,
like
they should be
organized
accounted. They should have accountability within their group. They shouldn't be pointing the finger outside of their group ever. I mean, there's no rule of
mm,
ethics that says it's okay to judge others before you take care of your own stuff. And
yeah,
so but there is no accountability anymore, and we don't see any in politics, we don't see any in the church, like, and until those people kind of take care of their stuff, we're just attached to them. Like in America,
yeah,
84% of our politicians are Christian. If you're not a Christian, you're just strapped to it. Right?
yeah,
Like it's just a
yeah. But
chain that pulls you around.
it's interesting. It's interesting because like I was watching that House of Cards. Like I told you, I was watching that series. Kevin
Mm.
Spacey playing just an evil guy,
Right.
which which you were like, yeah, that's a perfect role. Um,
I love him as a
but
serial killer.
no, yeah, yeah, it's great as a serial killer.
So believable.
But but it's like in that it's to do with politics and the White House politics, all this kind of stuff. Which I don't know a lot about politics, but just the fact that there are people that just claim to be Christian,
Yeah.
God fearing, they're not. They just
Right.
say they are.
Right.
They just say they are because that's what you've got to do.
Right.
Like that's what you. So
And
that it
that's
does make me. So it's not just a case of being like all of these people are Christian or Catholic, blah blah blah,
right.
and they're just like how many people are just like this is what I'm saying I am because
Right.
this is what I need to be for public support because the majority of people, blah 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 blah
Right.
blah blah blah
Right.
blah. So it's kind of like, of course there'll be the absence of those values because arguably in a lot of cases they're not. They don't, and that's another thing with organized religion, that it's like you've got a bunch of people in the same space that probably see things and disagree on so much,
Right.
um
They only
but
unify
they,
against other people.
yes, they so it's kind of like, as you said, like just turn around and look at yourselves, like
Right.
look within that group and kind of and realize there is like a
Right.
huge diversity and understanding
Right.
in, because how could there not be? It's such a
Right.
huge thing.
Exactly.
It's
How
such a
does
huge
anyone know
thing.
what anyone else's life is like? We don't.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
if you work
So
really hard at it, I mean, I've spent my whole life listening to people's stories. Like, I'm a collector of lives, as you do in mental health, right? Like, I know a
yeah,
lot of details about like things that nobody ever talks about, and how
yeah,
humans are. Again, I lost my train of thought. This is part
yeah.
of my doing
Yeah, well,
mental
this
health
is
for
well,
too
this is
long.
fun. It's hilarious because this is literally like me and you are the same mind about this. Like the other day, I
Mm.
remember having a conversation here, and I just lost my train of thought. Is when we were in that little chapel, the church, the Western environment.
Oh,
I was
that's
like,
right.
I just kept losing where I was. I was like, oh, thanks, brain. Today
That's
you've just got
right.
like all these holes in it. But yeah, so
That's
yeah.
preaching
Well,
does
I'm
it
trying to
every
remember.
time.
Yeah, but we were talking about uh, what were we talking about again?
I don't know. Let me stop the
Who am
stream,
I?
and then we can see if any of that
Okay,